Hello everyone and welcome to the Silvavine podcast with your host Michelle Da Silva. A podcast that focuses on creating healing and awareness. In today's episode, Michelle speaks with Minister Alma Thomas and Michelle Steiner about living with disabilities. Alma shares her experience of having a stroke and how she has found purpose and inspiration in her life despite her disability. Michelle discusses her journey of living with a learning disability and the challenges she has faced socially and academically. Let's dive into today's episode.
So, hi everybody, welcome to the Silver Podcast with me as your host, Michelle. Today we are speaking to two lovely people. I'm so excited to have them on. We have Minister Alma Thomas, who is a mother, author, motivational speaker. She loves the Lord, and Alma is living with a disability after suffering a stroke. Welcome, Alma. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Welcome. Hello. I'm excited about being here with you on today.
Thank you so much. And then our second guest, because I just really wanted a different perspective on this topic that we're speaking today, we have Michelle Steiner, who is a disability writer, speaker, photographer, and paraeducator. She lives in Pennsylvania with her husband and two cats. Welcome, Michelle.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So obviously I wanted to get the two of you on because I wanted to talk around the topic about disabilities. Obviously, Alma has had a stroke which left her into this position. And Michelle was born with a disability. And again, guys, please do correct me if I'm wrong. And this is why I wanted to speak about this topic, just to kind of raise awareness and to kind of correct my ignorance on the matter too. So if I do kind of speak out of turn, or if I haven't explained anything in the way, please do interrupt me. Yeah. So I think I'm going to start off with Alma. If you would like to please, share your story with us.
Okay. In 2021, I had a massive stroke, and I was in the hospital for 2 years. They didn't expect me to make it. They said that I had a 99% chance if they put me on a ventilator that they wouldn't be able to wake me up. And I didn't believe the report of the doctor that I was gonna die, but I just didn't know how my life was gonna change when I woke up and I couldn't move my whole right side. And now I'm in the bed, but I continue to empower people that no matter what you've been through, you don't have to just be a survivor. You can give yourself permission to live again and appreciate the things that you are still able to do. Don't concentrate on I can't walk anymore, but I concentrate on I can still use my voice to educate people that you don't have to give up. And when you find yourself in dire situations or circumstances.
Thank you for that, Elma. The question I have with regards to having found yourself in this position, would you say that did you find it difficult in terms of people's reactions on your disability now?
People's reaction is sometimes people are motivated by the fact that I'm in the bed, but other people who are vain, it's like, well, how can you show up on social media and social and podcasts and you're laying in the bed? And if people you don't explain, oh, I'm disabled, maybe people think that you're lazy or that, but they those are vain people. I no longer think about how people look at me. I just look at the impact that God can use me for to inspire people. Because if you have a dream inside of you and you're not fulfilling your purpose in your life and you've given up, because you reach some obstacle or some challenge, you can look at my life and say, wow, she had the hardest curveballs thrown at her, and she's still living out her purpose. As a matter of fact, that not bragging but giving God the glory, that since I've been in this bed, I have written 2 books, Surviving a Stroke Against All Odds, and a leadership book for church. So I didn't allow my circumstance to stop me. For a moment I was stunned and said, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then in all cases of grief, I got to the point where I accepted, okay, you can't walk, but you're still here, you're still above ground, you still have purpose. And I decided to turn my pain into passion and go back to writing. Don't give up writing. Just because I have one hand that doesn't work, I can still find a way in which to express myself through my book. So, I don't. I'm more like, the Bible says that God is not like man. Man looks on your outward appearance, but God knows you looks at your heart. So, I don't, care what people think about me. I'm just gonna. You can't put your purpose on pause. So
That's really quite inspiring, actually. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here, Elmer. When you living in a society where people are looking at it from a vain point of view, there's got to be times, though, where that you do feel down, and perhaps you think to yourself, like, why does this have had to happen to me? Do you have thoughts like that?
in the beginning,
Mm.
I first was in the rehab, I wish that every day I could say I was Superwoman and I was a woman of strength. But sometimes when you're waiting on, I don't care what people think about me, but when you're waiting on people and you used to be independent and now you used to be able to go to the bathroom, but now you have to wait for someone to change you. Sometimes those situations become embarrassing, and when you get frustrated, when you have to
Mm.
wait on somebody to do things for you, that's where I found my frustration. That's where sometimes my faith began to waver, because when you lose your independence and you have to wait on somebody else's schedule and time when they feel like they want to do it, then that's when you be like, oh, I wish I could walk because I can go to the bathroom. I,
Mm.
my own food.
Mhm.
But when I'm in this situation that I'm in, you depend on everybody for help, and which made it once I came home. When I was in the rehab, I was really frustrated because it was terrible there. But once I came home, my daughter is my caregiver, so anything that I need, she will provide it for me. So that that frustration became a little less. I'm still sometimes frustrated because I like things done right away. So if she's doing something like a homework or something and I have to wait, sometimes I get frustrated because
Mm. So it's more of that frustration because that you kind of have to rely on somebody else when you would just want to kind of do it yourself.
right.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing that, Elma. I'd love to hear a bit of your story and your disability, Michelle.
Sure. I was diagnosed with a learning disability whenever I was in kindergarten. My teacher noticed that I was really struggling academically and socially, but a lot of the struggle that they noticed was academics. I struggled to learn how to tie my shoes. I was struggling. Anything math related was really difficult for me, and visual perception. And I was my parents' first child, so they didn't have a whole lot to base on what normal development was. So my parents sent me to school, but my teacher could see that. And sure enough, I got tested for having a learning disability, and I do indeed have one. When I went to school, though, back in that time period, they didn't give anybody a specific diagnosis. They just gave you the blanket term learning disability. They did know I was not going to be a math genius or a mathematician when I was very young, though. That was one of the things we knew wasn't going to happen. I had to repeat kindergarten the following year in a different school, and I began to receive specialty instructions and accommodations to help me to learn. And in the very beginning, I was really frustrated. I can remember just wanting to learn like my peers, wanting to be accepted, wanting to make my parents proud, even though that I always was able to do that. And I can just remember feeling that life was always going to be really hard and really difficult. And if I just didn't have this disability, everything would be perfect. Eventually, a lot of the special instructions started to help. They found out I could read really well and I could write, and I was placed in regular ed, science and social studies, and reading. And I still had the accommodations of getting the test read aloud to me and extended test time. I also struggled socially a lot during those years. I went to a very small school district where it was really conservative and everybody was the same. And except for me, and my disability made me stick out like a sore thumb. And a lot of them did not accept me for that. And I certainly could not hide or blend in because it was a small school district. And when I was young, a lot of it was more, oh, you're not my friend, or you're not going to my birthday party. But as I got throughout school, it got harder for me socially, but it was a lot easier academically. I was in all regular ed classes except for math and learning support, and I was doing really well. But academically, socially, it was really hard because a lot of the groups were really defined, and I just didn't feel like I fit in with anybody. And the bullying really increased during that time. But one of the things we did is I found a group of people that were my age outside of my school district, and they were in an arts program. And I wrote for the newsletter and did some other things with them, and I found acceptance. And that really helped me when I wasn't with my peers to just feel like it was all right. Even if I was getting picked on, I knew what it was like to be accepted. And it also led me to my group of friends today. I found an adult writing group during my late teen years that we still meet 20 some years later. And they were just a couple years older than I was, and they got to see me not only grow as a writer, but as a person as well. One of our biggest struggles too, that when I was in high school, was what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I knew that I wanted to go to college and I wanted to work with kids, but a lot of people, including myself, didn't think that I could do that. I had a learning support teacher who said, I don't think you can handle college. Why don't you go to this trade school? And that would have been fine, except nothing interested me there. And I decided I was going to go to college. And I did have a teacher that was a student teacher that did encourage me. She told me, I know you can go to college because you know how to study and work hard. And sometimes when I did get to college and it was really difficult, that was the voice that I heard. Right before I could go into college, I was introduced to an agency that helps people with disabilities in our country be able to get jobs, go to school. It also helps out with testing to see if you do have a qualifying disability, and all their services are done for free. I was able to graduate debt free, which was something that was helpful. And I remember I had to be tested for having a learning disability all over again. And I've always had really low test scores. And the psychiatrist who evaluated me said that I was most likely not going to go beyond a community college because my scores were so low. And I still went forward to college, and I went to community college, and there was disability accommodations, but I didn't use them because there was a big stigma that was attached to them. A lot of people thought they were cheating. So I didn't use them, and my grades dropped. I had a professor that told me that I would most likely have limited job choices. And that was a real struggle for me. But despite all of that, I was able to graduate with an associate's degree in early childhood education. I moved out on my own. I loved having the independence, and I was working some temp jobs, and life was good. But I always wanted more for myself. And be careful what you wish for, because that is what did end up happening. I had to move back in with my parents because my job was downsizing, and I just thought this is the time to go back to school. And I found a program at university that had the least amount of math and science possible. And it also had a program that interested me in disability accommodations. And I ended up doing that. And I made Dean's List first semester. My grades improved. I also met my husband during that time period. And I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree despite being told I couldn't do it. After college, it took me a while to find the right job that was disability friendly. A lot of places claimed that they were, and it didn't turn out that way. I work in a school with students with disabilities now, and I've been there for about 13 years. I also ended up, my husband and I got married, and when we bought our first house, that was the inspiration to write my very first article. I had a lot of encouragement to write before, but I thought, oh no, it's too personal. And I wrote bad poetry and some other things. And I can remember I was standing outside our front door and I could not open up the door because I also have limited hand dexterity. And there was a prompt on the site called The Mighty that people with disabilities can connect and share their stories. And I wrote about that, and it got published. And I can just remember it was another really healing thing that I did, and encouraged me to write more and to start my own blog called Michelle's Mission, where I write about life with a learning disability. And I also feature my photography. I'm not able to drive, so when I go on a lot of my walks, I take pictures of flowers and can find details that other people will miss because I'm in the passenger seat rather than the driver's seat.
That sounds pretty amazing. And what I've noticed with your story as well as Elma's story is that even though both of you have come across with, a lot of obstacles, you're still finding ways to go around those obstacles.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you did have that, when you did have people who told you, that they didn't think that you could do this, or you didn't think that you could do that, do you think that they were mainly focusing on like the disability and maybe just ignorance to, because we live in a world where it's going to be a little bit difficult for you? What do you think that was?
I think a lot of it was focused on the disability, and it was also focused on sometimes what typically happens with people. Because a lot of my peers that I went to school with, I may not be close to them, but I have heard that some of them went to trade school, or they jumped from a lot of different kinds of jobs, and they didn't end up going to college, and some of them have addictions. And I think that a lot of that was the information of the statistics that just happens to a lot of people that have disabilities when they're not successful, or the programs that should be in place don't end up working effectively for them.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of like the social aspect, because you said you struggled with that also, what was that about? Was that more of, ignorance to young people, or were they just people that you didn't ordinarily get on with?
I think it was a mixture of both. I think a lot of it was kids, and I can see that in a lot of the students that I work with today, that it can be kids. And I also see that, though, as a lot of them just don't understand disabilities, and sometimes we look at families, and sometimes they're not always. We might have a kid that comes in that I work with that might be we might consider a bully, and then we have the family that'll come in, and usually we get a pretty good understanding of why this kid is the way they are too.
Both of you also just said earlier that you both through in stages where you had kind of wished like, oh, I didn't have this disability. And Alma, you used the term, once I actually accepted actually that this is my situation, then you can focus then on another purpose of how to get your message across, or to do a different purpose. So I was just wondering, in terms of like a disability, do you still think that it is something that you have accepted and you're okay with, or do you still wish that you didn't have the disability?
I'm at the point where I truly accepted it, because unless you truly accept it, you'll always be feeling like you're worthless or less than. Once you accept that, okay, I have a disability, now what? Now what am I
Mm,
gonna do? Am I gonna become bitter? Am I gonna lay in this bed and wallow in my pity day after day? Or am I gonna give myself permission to live? Not just be a survivor, but to live and to live out my purpose. And my purpose is to empower and inspire people. That's what I did before I became in the bed. I inspired people by my words, but now you can see physically what I'm going through, but I'm still encouraged. I'm still inspiring you to be the best. That you may have your leg, but um some other circumstance has you disabled in your mind, that you can't move forward because of what you're going through. And then you look at somebody who's going through but is still living out their purpose, who still believes you can't put purpose on pause no matter what your circumstance or situation is. So I've truly accepted the state I'm in now.
mm,
Excuse me.
mm. And Michelle, with you, are you comfortable sharing with people and say, I am Michelle and I do have a disability?
Yes, I'm definitely comfortable with sharing that. That was a journey for me. I remember when I was a lot younger, I wasn't. And I thought the only way to be happy was for it to go away. And now I've really accepted that I have one. And being that people can't see my disability, it's really important that I do tell people that I have one, especially if I'm at my job or if I'm starting at a new place of employment or just out with friends. Or I also traveled this summer for the first time independently. So people can't see my disability, and I had to use the Hidden Sunflower lanyard and some other services. So, but I've gotten to that point where I'm not afraid to tell people I have a disability. And I find that it's so much more empowering when I focus in on what I can do and what I can change and control rather than what I
Mm,
can't.
yeah, yeah. I think that is really powerful. Concentrating on what you can do, and
Mm-hmm.
not concentrating, because the minute we start thinking about all the things, then that's when we become stressed, and that it feels
Mm-hmm.
like we're all trapped in all these emotions, and we feel like we're stuck and we can't get out. Um, and it's very difficult to see a way out if all you're looking at is no way to go out. So yeah, I fully get that. In terms of, I think what I want to understand myself is that, are there any times, if you are living with a disability, do you feel that people treat you differently? Because I've heard like some people feel like they patronized a little bit by other people. I mean, what are both your thoughts on things? And if there's anything that, we could understand on how to approach people with living with a disability, kind of what to do, what not to do. Sorry, I threw about 3 questions there to both of you, all in one go. That was like 3 questions there. Sorry.
I
That
think with me, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go
Oh,
on, Elma. You first. Go on.
okay. With me, I don't want people to pity me or feel sorry for me. What is great is that I have a nephew who has autism, so I've always taught kids. I taught Head Start, and the kids were 3 and 4. And at that age, I always taught them that people are different, but don't bully people because you never know when you might be in that same situation. You might
Mm.
be day, but tomorrow you may have an accident that makes you disabled. So never look down on anyone. Don't tease your friends because they don't learn the way that you do. Everybody learns differently. So I accept my disability, and people don't treat me any differently than they did before, other than people feeling sorry for me, like, oh, well, why are you so happy, why do you have so much joy, your life should be over. And I'm looking at them like, don't pity me, don't feel sorry for me, because, like I said, I've accepted what I can and cannot do. I'm happy. I'm not. I don't wake up every day feeling hopeless and worthless. I wake up every day feeling happy and full of joy and at peace with where I'm at. Because when you accept things and that you can't change, and you find another way to fulfill your purposes and your dreams in life, then you are fulfilled. So I'm fulfilled. So no, people don't treat me any different other than feeling sorry for me.
Mm. What about you, Michelle?
Well, a lot of times people can't always see my disability because I have an invisible one. So sometimes I do have that privilege that I can go into a room and nobody knows that I have one. But some things people can pick up on a little easier too. I have, with my limited hand dexterity, this is a new one for me. And sometimes people can see that, especially if I'm in the grocery store. I remember last summer, I was in the grocery store, and sometimes my husband will go in with me, and other times, if it's not that crowded, he'll let me go. I'll go in by myself. And it wasn't a crowded day, and I was having a good day and packed everything up in the cart, and I was unloading it, and a woman came up behind me in the checkout lane, and she started talking with me, and I was having a nice conversation, and all of a sudden she starts unpacking my cart. And I said, oh, thank you. And she goes, yeah, I like to help people, and you look like you really needed help.
Oh
And
dear.
it was, yeah, one of the situations where I was like, oh, well, thank you. And it's not that I don't mind other people helping me out, but I would appreciate if somebody would come up and just say, hey, looks like you got a lot of groceries, or do you need some help here? Because I've done that for elderly people that couldn't reach stuff on shelves. I have no problem with helping somebody, or other common sense things. If someone needs the door open for them, I definitely don't have a problem doing that. So that was a new experience. And I think sometimes people because they can't see my disability, they don't understand it. I know a lot of times people don't understand why I can't do math. And at work, all the kids know, do not ask me for help with math. And sometimes when people think, oh, well, why can't you help them with their numbers, or why can't you help them with doing this? I have to explain again that I have a disability and I'm unable to do that. But if you give me reading, or you give me reading a test or English, I can do that really well. So I think I don't generally have people that will treat me differently because they can't see it all the time. But sometimes that leads to some confusion as well.
Mm. So would you say, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
that you want to be acknowledged for it, but asked, like in that situation with the lady, it would have probably been better if she's asked first if you wanted
Yes.
help or if you needed help, and then you made it, and then it was left for you to make that decision.
Yes, definitely. Because that way I could say, "Oh, I got it, thank you."
Mm.
Or I could have said, "Oh, yeah, that would be great if you could help me out here." Yeah.
Yeah. And also another thing, let's just say if we were in a room together
Hmm.
and I did think like, okay, I'm wondering if there is something there. Would you prefer me to ask? Would you be comfortable with me asking?
It depends on the situation. Definitely, if it's something that if you're wondering about, like if I know who you are, then definitely ask a lot of questions. But if it's someone that maybe you're at the grocery store and you see something and you don't know who I am, maybe not ask if there's a disability, but ask, "Oh, do you need some help with that?" And I think that's just being kind and respectful that anybody would want whenever they're in public.
Hmm. So, yeah. And what about you, Elma, in terms of people approaching you and
Well,
offering
it's
support?
people on social media. You know that people
Mhm.
on social media can be cruel. They are not educated about certain things. So they feel like because you're laying in the bed and um you should be invisible, like you shouldn't put yourself out there on social media. So I'll tell um when I start talking, I'll be like, maybe, I'll make a joke of it sometimes, like, I'm not lazy, I'm not tired, I had a stroke. And I started on my social media, you know how people are saying, of course, everybody knows me because I taught at Amityville Head Start. Now I'm like, of course I'm in the bed because I had a stroke. Of course I fall asleep without notice.
Okay.
But even
So
so, if it was your prerogative to lie in bed that day, it should be
Mhm.
your decision and entirely, your prerogative to do that. And it should not be down to other people, even commenting on it. There's no need for that at all.
right, but you know how social media, I want
Mm,
put yourself on social media, and it's not like I'm just doing live. I might be I have podcast called Inspirational Moments with Prophetess T, and I go on Tuesdays and Thursdays on my podcast, but every day I go and give inspirational quotes or sermons, whatever I'm led to do on that day. So my social media presence is increasing. So it's like sometimes people always see you laying down and they want to question that, or why are you doing it? Are you doing it for likes? No, I'm not doing it for likes. I'm doing it, and I'm not doing it for definitely for sympathy. I don't want anybody to sympathize with me, but I want to encourage other people that whatever you're going through, whatever challenges you face, that you have to find a way to overcome them. Don't just waddle at your pity party,
Mhm.
but do something that you can do, something that you can find joy in, something that you can find peace in, because you don't want to spend your whole entire life regretting the situation that you're in and never truly live. So I had to
mm,
find that after 2.5 years of being in rehab, and I finally came home exactly as a year ago on February 13th. I have been home a year after being in a nursing home for 2 years. So, yes, I appreciate life. Yes, I want to inspire people that when people say that you can, then you can. That don't allow dream killers to kill your dreams. Don't allow insecurity and low self worth to kill your dreams, but dream again. Like I double dog dare people to dream again.
But what would you say, Alma, to people who have just found themselves in a similar situation to you, who were healthy, and have now suffered by a stroke or a heart attack and has left them a bit disabled, and they're feeling a bit down, feeling a bit sorry for themselves, feeling like their whole world has ended? What advice would you give to somebody right now that was currently in that situation and was listening in on this episode?
I would tell them that better days are coming, that I know you can't see no way out of it now. You can't see no comfort in what you're going through, but better days are coming. Go through your when you have experienced a loss, whether it's losing a child, whether it's losing a limb, losing a relationship, you go through the stages of grief. So you're gonna go through denial. You're gonna go through bargaining. You're gonna go through blaming others. You're gonna go through all these emotions, but don't get caught there. Talk about your triggers. Talk about what triggers you and move on to the next step. Because when you go through all the steps, the final step is accepting the situation that you're in. So don't feel bad when you are going through these stages, when you're yelling and screaming, when you're feeling why me. Those are all normal stages, but don't get caught in one of those. Don't get stagnant in one of those stages, because better days are coming. That your mindset, you have to change your mindset to say, okay, I can't, whatever your disability is now, I can't use my arm, or I can't use my leg, or whatever it is. And then you have to concentrate, okay, what can I do to not lay in this bed feeling miserable for the rest of my life? And you have to go through all the stages, or you'll find yourself stagnated in one stage, and depending on what that stage is, you'll think about suicide. You'll say, I wish I had died, and all these things, because those are emotions that we go through as human beings. But don't give up. Don't look at your life as we go through chapters in life. There's some good chapters and there's some bad chapters, but each one is a chapter. It's not the final chapter. You turn the page and that chapter is over and a new chapter starts. So don't give up, don't give in, and don't give out.
Oh, I love that. I love that you go through chapters through each difficult emotional experience, and that does not mean it's the end or the final chapter. I absolutely love that, Alba. Thank you for sharing that. And Michelle, in terms of other people who are out there who were a similar situation to you, they was born with a disability and who are going through a bit of a struggle, maybe they are having difficult social relationships, or they are coming across people who are telling them, don't do this, you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough. What message would be that you would give them?
I would love to tell them that things do get better, things can get easier, and there's a way to be able to find that. And I would just encourage them to find what they want to do and base that on strengths. Definitely, I think that's a key thing. And to be able to find a way to be able to do it. It's going to look different for everybody. Some people, they might be able to do certain things, other people may not. And there might be, you might need a different way to do it, a different way to learn, a different way to think, and that's okay. And to make your peace with that. And I also love to encourage people that success doesn't always come in the package that we expect it to. Sometimes it comes in something much better, and it's just trusting that process. I think if I would have just went through a lot of that, when I was going through a lot of that, if I just would have relaxed and just enjoyed a lot of things, I think it would have been a lot easier for me going through that.
Yeah, And it's funny. You said make peace, Alma's acceptance. It's the whole
Yeah.
acceptance and making peace and actually just finding the happiness in the moments that you are going through. We're so quick to chuck our time away and just thinking like, oh, what's still to come? What's still to come? But actually, it's trusting the process and knowing that the good will always come out of a situation. So why not just sit back and enjoy it? Because life is going to be good.
Definitely. I agree with you.
And
What
Matt,
thank you both of you. What I love about both of you, and you can go on to tell me. So, Alma, you've said you read a couple of books. So, could we just share with people about the books that you've written, where they can find you, how they can access? Because I'm sure your books has a very inspirational stories to it. So please do share.
okay, you can find me on Alma Thomas at Facebook. My against having a stroke against all odds and my healing journey is not out yet. It's at the editors being edited. So as soon as it's out, or if you want to pre-order a copy, you can reach out to me at Alma Thomas at Facebook.
Thank you so much. And Michelle, would you like to share your writing and where people can find you?
Sure, I would love to. You can find me at my blog, michellesmission.net. And I also have 3 stories that were published in an anthology over the summer. And you can find that one on Amazon. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Thank you so much. Both of you have been extremely inspiring. So I just wanted to applaud both of you and thank you for sharing your stories and your messages with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me to be on your platform on today, and just hopefully if I inspire one person, then my living won't be in vain.
Definitely not. And I'm sure, Alma, there is somebody out there that will resonate with everything that you're saying today, because I certainly have. And I don't think I will forget the chapters in a heartbeat. So thank you for that. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.